Give the call to the member for Hume.
My question is to the Prime Minister. After 3 failed budgets, the Prime Minister has failed to tackle and beat inflation. Respected economist Chris Richardson has said governments have abandoned the field in the inflation fight. We are fighting the inflation fight one-handed, and that mortgage relief is a very, very long way away. When will the Prime Minister admit his $315 billion spending spree is driving homegrown inflation and threatening further interest rate increases into the future?
Order. The Treasurer will just wait before he stands before I call him. Order. Now, the member for Hume, you've asked your question. You have the MPI today. You've had a lot of latitude this week, so we're just going to make sure everyone's following the rules. And the Prime Minister, the Treasurer, has the call.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Now, once again, Mr. Speaker, as the Prime Minister said a moment ago, if the Shadow Treasurer thinks there's $315 billion too much spending in the budget, then he should come clean to the pensioners and veterans and people who rely on Medicare in this country and tell them exactly how he's going to cut $315 billion of spending from the budget, Mr. Speaker. And if he's angry about inflation, which is running in quarterly terms at 3.6%, he must have been absolutely furious with the 6.1% that he left us when he stopped being one of the most embarrassing parts of the worst-performing government since Federation, Mr. Speaker. Now, when inflation had a 6 in front of it and was on the way up, and when interest rates were already rising, they delivered a budget which had a net policy spend of nearly $40 billion, which is nearly double what our budget did. They forecast 2 deficits, which we are turning into 2 Labor surpluses. In 2 years alone, a $165 billion turnaround in the budget. That is historic, Mr. Speaker, $215 billion in total. We've banked the vast majority of revenue upgrades. They used to spend most of it. We found almost $80 billion in savings in the budget. Their last budget had precisely $0 in savings, Mr. Speaker. And so the point I'm making here, Mr. Speaker, with this avalanche of damning facts about their record in office is they wouldn't know the first thing about responsible economic management. The Shadow Treasurer wouldn't know responsible economic management if it slapped him in the face, Mr. Speaker, and their record speaks for itself. As the Prime Minister pointed out rightly a moment ago, when we came to office there were deficits as far as the eye can see. There was $1 trillion in Liberal Party debt and almost nothing to show for it, and the budget was being consumed by the interest costs on that debt. And so we have been working in a considered and a methodical and a responsible way to clean up the mess that we inherited from those opposite. We've seen inflation moderate substantially since they were office, but not enough, Mr. Speaker. It needs to moderate further and faster. And we know from the comments from the Reserve Bank Governor and the Reserve Bank Deputy Governor that the sorts of things that we are doing are helping in the fight against inflation, primarily turning your 2 big Liberal deficits into 2 Labor surpluses. The Governor of the Reserve Bank has said that is helpful in the fight against inflation. And the last point that I would make, Mr. Speaker, but I hope I get many more questions about this, is if those opposite really cared about the cost of living pressures that people are under, they wouldn't be opposing the cost of living relief which is rolling out this week.